So the source of all this, I thought initially that it was people releasing pets, which it was. But it was also, there was some sort of like a Python research center and it got damaged.
So there's a lot of speculation with that. To me, that Python research center is kind of more of like an urban myth.
Oh, really?
Yep. There's never been a facility named. There's this place that they keep speaking of, people keep mentioning. We don't know what it is. No one's ever been, oh, it was this facility. It's just not a thing.
Interesting.
And people were releasing pets that got too big. They were escaping as well. But to me, that's not enough to be where we're at today.
Really?
It's just not enough. Why don't we have anacondas all over? Why don't we have, we do have Nile monitors, but why don't we have Nile monitors everywhere? Why don't we have caiman everywhere? We have some caiman, but nothing like the python. To me, it was, and I do have some things that are leading me to believe this. I'm not just pulling this out of my butt, but this is definitely an opinion, I would say. I believe that they were intentionally released by somebody or multiple people, probably reptile breeders, in a hope that they could stop importing pythons from overseas as pets and start farming them in state and collecting them out of the Everglades, reproducing them, getting big breeders out of the Everglades, using them, and then cutting out that essential middleman.
Whoa.
And
Really?
There's definitely been a lot of things that kind of confirm this to me. And I'm not the only one that believes this either. But I definitely don't want to get into necessarily mentioning names or anything.
Yeah, we don't have
like
to
that,
mention names.
But,
so what gave you this, what evidence is there of this, or what?
Well, just from what we've seen with other species, for something to take hold like this and become so prevalent, it needs to be intentional. There needs to be thousands to be released at a time. And
Really?
During the height of the Burmese, it was the most popular pet being imported into Florida. During the height of it, you would have 1,000 come in a week in a crate, and they would, sell them all over the country. And I think it was the kind of thing where it's like, well, let's dump one of these crates out there and see what happens and see if we can start farming them out there. These people, I've even just hear how they talk about the python problem in Florida, and it's I don't know. There's definitely something to it, and just
How do they talk about it?
kind of defending it, almost, oh, leave the pythons alone. And,
What?
yes.
Who does that?
Different old school breeders that the old reptile importers, like the kind of some of the founding fathers of it, the exotic pet trade in Florida.
Dude, I think you just uncovered a giant conspiracy.
Yeah, well, it is for sure.
Somebody needs to look into that. If people are actually responsible for this.
Yeah. There have been people caught. There have been people caught, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe the guy was given life in prison or something crazy. But I think it was on the West Coast. He was caught. There was a sting operation where they have surveillance, him dumping hundreds and hundreds of reptiles into, I don't know if it was the Everglades. I think it was maybe probably the western side of the Everglades Conservancy area. And everything from chameleons, tegus, monitors, pythons, all kind of different species.
And why was he doing that? Aren't they valuable?
Yep. But what we're seeing in the state is people doing that to farm them, especially with chameleons. People will go out and they'll dump maybe 50 chameleons into an area in a specific tree more often. And then they'll come back a year or two later and there's a huge population of them. And then they go out and they pick them and then they sell them for $50 to $100 each. You could go out and make $3,000 in a night just from a couple $100 of chameleons you put out there, a year ago or so. And it's become, a business. And there's right and wrong ways to go about things. by no way am I knocking the reptile trade or anything like that. As a kid, I grew up with 20 different reptiles as pets and breeding them and selling them as pets. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a right and wrong way with anything, like owning a gun or anything else. We shouldn't necessarily make these animals illegal, because what we've seen when just recently they've made iguanas and tegus illegal in Florida to own as pets. And we're seeing people dump their pets because FWC has been going around, and they said they wouldn't, but they have been. They've been going around and actually euthanizing people's pets. And to someone that, this iguana or this python even or anything, to a lot of people, it's like a dog. It's like someone killing your dog. It really is. And they would much rather turn it loose and give it the chance to survive than to have it euthanized. And then what you're left with is irresponsible pet owners. You're left with people that are breaking the law to own these animals, probably don't have proper enclosures, probably don't take good care of them, and probably will just release them when they're done with them. So you take all of the good away and you're left with the bad, when instead we should put regulations in place, proper regulations, where people then are forced to house these animals correctly. And the problem is no longer pet iguanas or pet pythons. It's wild breeding animals. And when they made these iguanas illegal just this past year, they've now stopped all of that free management we had of people coming from all over the country, coming to Florida, catching these iguanas, catching these tegus, taking them out of the state and selling them where they can't survive anyway because it's too cold. And it was helping us. It was helping control these populations. Now all of that is gone. You're not allowed to do that anymore. And this year in particular, I'm seeing more baby iguanas than I ever have in my entire life. It's
that was the primary way that they were regulating, or that they were controlling the population size, was people coming in and grabbing them?
No, that's not the primary way, but that was a huge way.
What percentage do you think
that was on top of what myself and other people in the state are doing. That was especially for the juveniles and baby iguanas, that's 90%.